Hi, I'm Paul Skeith, and I'm a business lawyer practicing in Austin, Texas. Today, I want to walk through a topic I see coming up more and more in my own practice: how a non-U.S. business can acquire a U.S. company to establish a presence in the United States. If you're based outside the U.S. and thinking about expanding through acquisition, there are a few key structural and legal steps you'll want to understand right from the start. The first major step is forming a new U.S. subsidiary that will act as the acquiring company. Why? Because a U.S. entity provides a clean, efficient way to complete the transaction, manage ongoing operations, and limit liability. It also creates a home base for future growth, hiring, and U.S. commercial relationships. Most foreign-owned subsidiaries choose to be taxed as a C corporation. This is important and something you should talk to your accountant about. A C Corp is the default corporate tax structure for U.S. businesses, and it's generally the most straightforward option for cross-border ownership. It keeps the parent entity outside the U.S. tax system as much as possible, simplifies reporting, and aligns with what most U.S. sellers expect. So before you start negotiating with the target company, it's smart to have that U.S. subsidiary formed, documented, and ready to be the official buyer. Once your U.S. entity is in place, the acquisition process looks fairly similar to what you might see in other jurisdictions: letters of intent, due diligence, negotiation of purchase agreements, closing mechanics. But one thing to keep in mind is that U.S. due diligence, especially around employment, taxes, and intellectual property, can be more detailed and more formal than what some non-U.S. companies are used to. Expect lots of documentation, lots of verification, and an emphasis on things being written down. Another area that often surprises non-U.S. buyers is U.S. employment law. The U.S. system is unique. Most employment is at will, meaning employees can be terminated for almost any lawful reason. There is no national requirement for notice periods or severance, and federal and state rules can differ significantly. When it comes to executive compensation, expectations may also be very different from what you see internationally. Senior leaders in U.S. companies typically have detailed employment or offer agreements outlining salary and bonuses, equity or stock option grants, change of control protections, severance packages, non-compete or non-solicit obligations where they're enforceable. If you're not used to this level of contractual detail, it can feel like a lot, but it's very normal in the U.S. market. So to recap: 1. Form a U.S. subsidiary, usually taxed as a C corporation, to serve as the buyer. 2. Prepare for a structured and documentation-heavy acquisition process. 3. Expect U.S. employment and executive compensation norms to differ from what you've seen before. If you're planning an expansion into the U.S. through acquisition, getting these foundational steps right can make the entire process smoother and more predictable. Thanks for watching, and feel free to reach out if you want to dig deeper into any part of this process. And I also invite you to share your own experiences with this process in the comments below.